So this week's episode of Vinland Saga, all I have to say is, goddamn, this is how you write characters and a story, and just the theme of this episode, and just the idea of a servant, and it kind of works for a couple of characters. On one hand, you have our boy Thorfinn, who is, just bound and bent to protect Askeladd because he is one who wants to kill him, but he wants to do it nobly in a duel like his father would want. So he ends up being the servant for his king, his leader, Askeladd, despite not liking him. But then, the most important part is you have Askeladd, someone who at a very young age had to take care of his sick mother, someone who was dying and just wasn't in a good place, and for people like them, they believed that their ancestors one day would return and save them from the evil people that took everything away from them. And someone who isn't old, but as a warrior, he's not who he once was. He isn't someone who can take on 50 men by himself anymore, despite having the skills his body can't keep up. He's reaching a point where he's best suited as an advisor role, someone who would work with someone he believes in, because he's not as young as he once was. He's getting closer to death, and this isn't a time period where everyone gets to live till they're 100, right? So he may only have another 10 years, another 20 years if his health holds out. And he just gives up. He gives up on the fairy tale. He gives up on this just idea that things will just magically happen, and says, you know what, Canoe, this kid here, maybe he's worth serving. I didn't see that coming. I didn't see Askeladd literally just wanting to serve him because he was abandoning this, belief that he grew up on because he's too old for this shit. There's a king here, a king in the making that, should he guide him in the way that he believes a king should go down, he might actually have a ruler that could bring about the change that he wants in the world. Not only will his life be secured, but the people that he actually cares for might actually be taken care of. That's not a layer of Askeladd that I was expecting, but that's why this episode was so phenomenal. The action was incredible. There was so many funny moments with just our boys, and just what the hell are we looking at for big man just charging through, and just some of the faces. But the most important thing was just the character writing being so damn good. I mean, it's just something that it totally makes sense, but I wasn't expecting this. And that's what's truly great, because there was a lot of ways that they could go about this confrontation. I think it was pretty clear Torquil was going to get there at some point, but just the idea that he just says it how it is. He no longer cares anymore. He says, I've always hated you guys, and then just starts killing them. He's getting older for sure, but he is still one of the best warriors that we've seen in Vinland Saga. But if this was probably 20 to 30-year-old, Askeladd, he probably would have taken care of all of them and been on his way, waving goodbye to Torquil in the distance, but his body obviously isn't going to be able to keep up. But just seeing that play out, and just the betrayal, this honestly had to hurt them, because they didn't want to kill him, because they've been traveling together for how long, right? They actually do respect their leader, but their leader have kind of driven them to a point where either they have to jump off the cliff and die, or potentially serve someone who isn't going to kill them. There's only so much a mentality can take, and then you hear that the person that you were willing to give the benefit of the doubt to is saying he always hated you, and then just starts killing you mindlessly. That has to sting. Even though I was rooting for Askeladd to get out of this situation, I understood their perspectives and mentalities, because there's only so much a warrior can take, and, we shouldn't numb ourselves to just saying we gotta keep killing. Maybe sometimes it is okay to look after ourselves in this time period. And it was so interesting to see that battle take place, and then you would transition to the wagon situation, then you would have just Bjorn and all of them, and just how they were trying to just say, give him up, Askeladd, he's done for. And the numerous times they're able to incorporate these very humorous sequences, it didn't feel jarring or out of place. It just felt like Vinland Saga needed this. Sometimes where he's you know me best. The only way you're gonna get this prince back is if you kill me. Why are you attacking the horse? Attack me. It's this series can be so ridiculous, so brutal, but then so serious and mature. And I love that balance that it's found to just strike something that screams Vinland Saga, and you wouldn't have it any other way. There's just so many moments that are just callbacks to previous episodes, like the whole mushroom situation kind of powering up in a way to just let you just mow through people. You have Torquil just being so depressed at wait, they're betraying each other? You didn't even let me come here? It's These characters are so tunnel vision in what they want. Blindly serve someone like Ashlad, you know, wanting to kill people and getting disappointed that you're not a part of the battle. Just wanting to live another day and then getting blindsided that your leader all this time never liked you and you were completely didn't even notice that. It's just like all the little details snapping together is so fantastic. And the difference between an action scene that is just pretty action and an action scene that is pretty but has a lot of substance to the motivations is pretty much night and day. The reason that this action piece was so gripping was because there was so many stories at play. Every single soldier, even if you didn't know their name, had a story playing out during this set piece because they wanted to live, they wanted to protect the prince, either because they wanted to serve him, or they were just serving him because they wanted to kill Asha in the future, right? There's all these little things at play, and with every slash, it felt like there was a story being told. It looked beautiful, it was well animated for the most part. A couple of hiccups with some 3D objects with horses racing in the background, sure, but nothing that's really worth paying that close of attention to because it's on screen for less than 5 seconds. But the core things that we were focusing on were so damn beautiful. I love just seeing how it almost felt like he was someone from a fairy tale. Ashlad was just cutting and it was almost like a dance, this like beautiful dance, and even though it was so bloody, and you just saw all this destruction, but with each time we focused back on his perspective, you saw how wounded he was. He wasn't going to get out of this alive. There was no way whatsoever. But the idea that even though he was doing so well and he just sliced through a man head to toe, like, that was, wow. I was not expecting that. You know, Torquil I would expect that from, but Ashlad I did not, but it really does show, should he be even maybe 10 years younger, they easily would have all died there. Without a doubt. That's why they all had to back off and draw bows, because there was no way they were going to win head-on with a man, even if he was as old as he was. Though I do have to say, even though with all the unexpected moments in this episode, there was something completely unexpected, but also obvious if you really thought about it, but in the moment you really didn't want to because there's just so many things happening. Torquil is a man who will kill anyone, and he'll kill anyone whether you have a weapon or not, but he wants you to hold that blade because he wants to have an honorable duel. I love how when he does get there, there is so many moments that are just screen cap worthy because his face, it's not even that like he's always the focus. He's usually in the background, but he'll be just having these reactions that is just imagining your life is on the line and you have a man looking at you just doing these funny faces and you're like, this man is a lunatic and he's gonna kill me. And then he says, kill them all except Ashlab, the person you betrayed, saying, okay, we'll give him the prince, we'll do this, and we'll get to live. Imagining that, even though your leader said he always hated you, should you have not done that, you guys probably would have been on your way to freedom. Maybe you would have lived an extra 5 to 10 years before Ashlad decided you weren't worth it, but you would have lived longer. But instead, what ultimately happens is you decide to betray the person that has guided you for so many years. Even if he hated you, he did keep you alive for the most part, and the only person who's actually going to survive this altercation is going to be the person you were trying to kill all along. That has to be the most painful stab to the heart. But then again, I guess when you pretty much die in fear when the man just hands you your axe and says, all right, let's do this, it definitely comes a close second. But just, there's so many times they'll frame shots that can either be super dramatic and sad or just absolutely hilarious. One of my favorite shots in this episode is when basically Torquil is just kind of like, he's moving his arm, he's getting prepared, he's loosening up, and then you'll just see these arms and just flying in front of him. It's like, it is so gruesomely disturbing, but kind of hilarious, because what else do you do in this situation? You just laugh and nod in agreement, being like, yep, that's Vinland Saga for you. But one of my other favorite shots in this episode is, it's a pretty typical shot for what they were going for, but I think it worked exceptionally well. Is back in the flashback where they're basically discussing how it's so hard for their life. You see basically rats like kind of going into their food and eating it, because that just really highlights how bad their life was and why they believed in this fairy tale for so long. Because what else do? You either got to pray to religion or you have to believe that there's something that's going to save you, even though realistically, should you have a proper stomach full of food, you know that's not going to happen. Really just adds on to Ashlad and just why he is deciding to serve Canute. Like, obviously he's doing vile things to get there, killing Ragnar and things like that, but it's interesting how it's not even just like benefiting his own life. He just truly seems like thinks that this king, should he serve him and teach him what he believes is the right way to rule and lead, he might actually be able to do a lot of good for the people that he cares about, and the people he doesn't, he can just say, screw you. It's interesting how there's so many like self-serving motivations, but at the same time, there's actually more noble ones underneath a lot of very corrupt layers, and that's what kind of helps Vinland Saga's characters really flourish as not just being good or evil. I've mentioned it throughout all the weeks I've been reviewing this. Like, there really isn't heroes and villains. They're all doing things. Torquil, as much as I laugh at him, the man's a lunatic. Look at what he's willing to do and how he laughs as he kills, right? But he's such an interesting character because he's bound by this warrior code that in this time period does make sense. You have someone who is an absolute lunatic like Thorfinn, who just, like, why would the mouse challenge the Goliath? But he wants to kill his boss, right? All these characters are bound by some form of logic that in their mind probably makes sense and doesn't make them look at themselves in the mirror as a villain. But in our own time period, we look at most of these characters being like, these guys are absolute lunatics. But that's what makes Vinland Saga such an exceptional show. It separates an author who understands that characters, especially in a Viking era, are going to be quite multi-layered, and they're not just going to be sunshine and rainbows, the knights in shining armor, and the brutal Vikings that are evil. No, they're all kind of messed up in their own way, and unless you're a general villager, you're probably not going to be able to get a good night's sleep thinking you have done a good thing in this world. But that's the difference between a quality author and your run-of-the-mill light novel authors of the industry, because it's someone who understands how to write something that actually has substance and quality. And you can tell what studio is very passionate about this source material. I've read interviews where apparently a lot of the team involved with this adaptation actually really loved the manga the same way they really loved Attack on Titan when they were adapting that. And it just shows. It shows the difference between something just being adapted for profit and, you know, this is just your job for the next year or two, this is what you're going to make, and someone who actually cares about the source material, and you can tell in the quality. This is something that is getting its all, and imagining if this actually does get a full adaptation as it continues on, that will be absolutely incredible and become one of the best anime that has ever been made, without a doubt. This episode and just Vinland Saga in general is absolutely fantastic. Now, next week there won't be an episode because there's a bunch of like sporting events going on, so different anime are getting either postponed by a week, either this week or next week, so there won't be a Vinland Saga episode, so we won't get to see the confrontation next week, but the week after we will. What did everyone think of what I would probably say is the best episode of Vinland Saga, but obviously you can have your own opinions. Whatever you're feeling, let me know down in that comment section below. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like and also hit that subscribe button if you have any news. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.